Hi everyone, this is Ingrid and welcome to my WinterBookLand. So today I thought it would be fun to do another discussion video because I promised you a discussion video in the last video, and this is something that I also have developed a lot of interesting opinions on lately, so I think it would be very fun to discuss it now that I'm actually interested in it and not like 3 weeks from now when I've kind of lost joy over it. So as you can probably guess from the title, or not, because I think this title is gonna be a little bit like edgy. Basically today we're going to be discussing authorial intent in books, kind of a fan entitlement. I think I've shifted a bit away from that now as my opinions have developed, but we'll see. And also censorship and policing in the book industry. Oh yeah, I'm looking at my notes now and they are literally called Resposibility of the Author. Like, good job Ingrid, you forgot the main point of this entire video. Good job, bud. Okay, so I'm mainly basing this on the nature of the YA book community, so just know that when I talk about this, because that also comes a bit into play in something I will discuss later, and also a lot of the criticisms I have. One thing you should know though is that a lot of my early arguments are going to be arguments that I had about 2 weeks ago, and I based my opinions on 2 weeks ago, and then I saw this video discussing some book that where I found a lot of opinions and things I hadn't thought about before, which have changed my opinion slightly, so you'll see that development as we discuss further in the video. A lot of the points I bring up in this video will be in disagreement with the general opinion of something and the thing I'm discussing. I just want you to know that if you feel angered or you disagree with the thing I said, I would like you to skip to this timestamp. I'm going to flash it on screen every time I say something that might be slightly controversial, so that you can see a thing I have understood about the criticisms these things have gotten, because I found that there is a very good difference there. Basically I am on the lucky side because I was kind of ignorant to these issues, because I had just gotten this one side of it and I didn't think that the other side basically existed. So you'll get to see that throughout the video. In the book community, especially on Twitter, you see a lot of people criticizing, cancelling and attacking books and authors because of problematic content in the books. And a lot of the main arguments is what is this going to teach the people reading these books? You know, what kind of message are you sending to these young people that are very impressionable and are learning worldviews from these books that they are reading? These things that I've learned recently are 2 different parts which apply differently to each case I'm going to bring up. So the relevant timestamp will come up from when I mentioned these 2 different things, just so you're aware. So this is actually going to be a bit of an exploration of my train of thought and also my progression throughout exploring and discussing this topic. So the first opinion that I started out with was basically books are not a form of education. And now what I mean by that is that it may have been before, because a lot of books you see, like children's books and teen books, often have a very strong message. This same like rhetoric of these strong messages is also being projected onto YA books and the YA industry. And that fits very badly for authors who just want to tell a story, because no matter what you think about the book, about the message it sends, you also have to think about the authorial intent the author has for the story that they are telling. If the author thinks that they just need to describe something that is happening in the world without having a moral message, that is their opinion. For example, you can see Anna Todd and her story After as a reference for this. And yes, that is something that I've slightly changed my opinion on, and you can find the timestamp up here. This is the first and last time I'm going to mention the timestamp, just so you're aware where it will appear, and also for editor Ingrid to get her shit together and actually do it. My main argument here is that parents are primary educators, and I think that a lot of responsibility should be shifted from the author to the parent and also the publisher, but we'll get into that later. Because just like when the internet is involved, it's the parent's responsibility to have control and have an overview of what their kid is reading, experiencing, taking influence from. Because for parents to completely detach themselves from this education that their children are getting is kind of not okay. So the main example I'm going to use throughout this entire video basically is Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses. And here it doesn't matter if you haven't read the series, if you think the writing is shitty or not, because I think it's such a great example of a series that has just been done wrong by this entire thing I'm discussing. A lot of the criticisms for A Court of Thorns and Roses is the abusive relationship in the first book that is presented as okay, and also a lot of the sex in the book. The thing is about A Court of Thorns and Roses is that on the back there is a short sentence that reads, "There is adult content in this book, and younger readers should view with discretion." That is the parents' responsibility to notice and also make up their mind if this is an okay book for their child to read. Here the publisher and Sarah J. Maas has taken care to say that here are some aspects of the book that may be troubling, and it is your responsibility as a parent and as a reader to take that to heart. And like a small point that we're going to just shoot in here is how I feel like a lot of readers nowadays are applying characters' motivations and opinions to the author's opinions and motivations, and I don't think that's quite alright. For example, there has been a lot of controversy. There was a controversy around a book called The Black Witch, I think. The Black Witch, it revolves around a main character who is racist to these fantasy races, I think. I just saw like a brief explanation of the entire world building, so I think that was the case. In my opinion, as I read it, it seemed like the point of the book was that the character was racist and narrow-minded, and that she developed from this worldview. But a lot of readers and reviewers kind of lashed out at the author and thought that this was the worldview the author was promoting. And yes, this also cuts into the thing that I learned later, so just don't get mad at me. And I think that you as a reader, you have the right to be offended by everything that happens in this book. If you are triggered, and I use that in the most serious sense ever, I hate how that world has become trivialized, but if you are triggered by characters being racist and just the historical implications of the whole racist thing, I think you have the full right to be offended by this and rage about this and warn about this, because you did not get a forewarning to what the author included and what was going to fill most of the book. And I think like that's a major point in just this discussion. Like, if you went into the book expecting that, oh, this is a racist character and she changes her mind, if that was mentioned in the synopsis or in the author's explanation of the book, I think you may have gone into the book a little different, because then you had a forewarning to how this character would be, and also the author's opinion of the character's opinion. And I feel like that's where a lot of the anger comes from, because you were just hit in the face with these aggressions that you weren't warned of, and I have full sympathy for you. So then this part fully like wasn't for you, because you are valid in feeling these feelings. Just know that, try to research if the author is of the same opinion, because a lot of the time, like the book trigger warning, you can I will link 2 reviews of the book down below, but there it was very easy to connect the author to the authorial voice. You could kind of see that the author had a lot of the same opinions as the main character and was using it as a mouthpiece. But I feel like you need to research what the author is saying about this character publicly, officially, before you can attack the author for the character. And this also gets into the thing we're gonna mention later. So basically I think my main argument is here just because an author is writing something does not mean they support it, and you have to, and it's your responsibility as a reviewer, if you're putting out a review of this book, to find out if the author does or not. And I think it also could be very healing to someone's mental health if they feel triggered by this book to search up if the author really supports it or not. And you also have a right to have rant reviews of it and get these feelings out and also warn other people. And this is kind of my next point, that by this video I am not encouraging you to stop making rant reviews about this book with problematic content. I think what you're doing is fantastic. It is great because, as I said, this is YA and it's read by people from 13 and up. And when I had the idea of making this video, I was totally on the side of there's a clear distinction between content and real life. I didn't think there was any clear connection between the two. But I follow this user on Tumblr that is just like, their name is Fiction is Not Reality, but they posted or reposted and they reblogged this post that I think sums up my feelings now pretty well. Fiction can influence reality in concert with other factors in complex and unpredictable ways. That does not make fiction equivalent to reality. And that, of course, takes the reader's age into consideration, because I know at 13 years old you are very easily influenced, and it does not help that YA, at least to young girls, seems like a grown-up genre that you need to read. At age 11 I think I read a lot of YA, so therefore the age limit goes down below 13 as well. And I'm not going to deny that these people are impressionable. They pick up things and they idealize it. They idealize whatever they read in book. They are not as critical as readers as older people are. I had a point. Where is my point? There is my point. So therefore, I think it is wonderful that people are making rant reviews and criticizing what they find in these books, because at least when I was younger, I wanted to know what other people thought of these books, and therefore I looked up reviews, I looked up videos of them, and I got to hear other people who I then idolized as well, and their opinion of the book that I loved so much. And by doing this, you reviewers who are pointing out problematic content are actively informing these people that, oh, you may have enjoyed this book, but the content is still problematic, and here's what's wrong with it, here's what you shouldn't idolize in a relationship, and similar things to that. And that is just so great, because then you are showing a responsibility that the publisher did not take, and I feel like then you're just showing that you're really grown up and you're willing to take responsibility and take care of other readers, and I am so grateful that you are doing that. And this also has something to do with me being the reader that I am, because I take these things for granted. I've always done. The thing is, I've always had this kind of reflective and critical view of books, so everything that happens in a book I've always connected. If you're hearing a piano right now, sorry, that's my brother. He's really lovely and I love him, and don't criticize him for playing the piano because he's really great, okay? Thank you. I've always taken problematic content in a book as a part of the story. I've always thought about it that way, and readers who may be affected and more affected than me by these things didn't really cross my mind. So that I feel like is a problem of both sides of the argument, because you're not willing to set yourself into the mindset of the other side, and therefore you can't get a full opinion of what their opinion is, and you also get just a full stop in the discussion because you're unwilling to see the other side's point of view. Here I now can admit that I take kind of these problematic aspects for granted. I always take them as a part of the story, unless it is really obvious that the author is trying to push an agenda. So my reviews of books should always be put in comparison to someone else's, because they may have noticed things that I didn't notice, and I may have noticed things that they didn't notice. And as an example here, we can of course use A Court of Thorns and Roses, because I immediately, as a reader, read it with a critical eye and read it as a narrator, oh my god, with an unreliable voice. I found Faded to be unreliable. I instantly made up the mind that she didn't feel loved by her family, and therefore whatever I was going to read with her interaction with Tamlin was going to be affected by that. A 13-year-old reading this book would probably not have that approach. For them, it's just entertainment and a story. So therefore, I have to think about that when I talk about this book, and also the content that is included and how it affects other people. Now, one point that I'm going to dive a bit deeper into is something that has kind of blossomed up these last few weeks. I also have to make a point of the fact that this is something that I see more developed, that this is actually a problem that I see that I think needs to stop, and that is the why present a bad person as a human being. One example I will pull up here is the new season of 13 Reasons Why, where an alleged rapist kind of gets these humanizing moments, and the main conflict of the season is really, could he have progressed into a good human being if he didn't get killed? And a lot of people were offended by this, saying, you know, he is a rapist, why should he be humanized? Of course, if you were triggered by this, if you found it too close to home to your own story, basically, if you're a human being, you had the right to be offended by this season. You had the right. I'm not saying that you did not. I found a really interesting point that was brought up in a discussion video or something, is that when you say that a bad person in a book shouldn't have a humanizing moment that makes their intentions and their motivations clear. I completely lost my train of thought. Okay, we're gonna start that new. So when you say that a bad character can't get proper motivations or humanizing moments, I feel like you're denying that character humanity, and that you're... Yeah, of course you are. But basically my point is that you're refusing to see this person as human. And this is something kind of like... It's a kind of mental thing where the action is so horrible that you can't apply it to a human person. You can't believe that a human person did this. So it's kind of a coping mechanism to demand that they do not get humanizing moments, because you can't comprehend the fact that a human did this. Sorry. My camera automatically stops filming after like 30 minutes. Then we're back again. Okay. And this also can have like real world effects. So when you tell a person that an abuser has to be a monster no matter what, that they don't have human moments or moments of kindness, essentially some victims, I am not saying all victims, I am not talking all victims, I'm just saying that this can be an effect. When a victim sees that their abuser is not behaving like a full-out monster, that they're actually kind sometimes, and that they appear to care sometimes, they think, oh, I'm not being abused, because my abuser or this person is not a full-out monster. Just go to this timestamp if you are on the verge of attacking me here, because even if I brought up 13 Reasons Why as an example, I will explain by why that series got so much flack for it. in this time step and why I think it deserved that criticism it got. So I just want to mention that extremely like point blank here, because this is so relevant for what I'm talking about right now. And I also feel like a bad character with no motivations to be this bad are kind of flat. They're not engaging, and just having them be a blank slate of their crime is not a good thing, to say the least. For example, in the book You by an author I can't remember the name of, but basically You focuses around a stalker. He stalks a girl and then kidnaps her and a lot of things like that. But as a critical reader you can tell that you're not supposed to sympathize with this guy, but you're reading it from his twisted point of view, and it is very clear in the narrative that what he's thinking is wrong. I don't know how she does it, but the author manages to make you really grossed out by his thoughts, and you kind of can tell that this isn't an okay way to think. Something I forgot to mention, and I now need to edit in, please. Oh my god. So I have this kind of glass beside my door into the room outside my room, and it just reflected the sleeve of my sweater, and I thought that something was moving in there and I just got terrified. But basically that is the discussion of trigger warnings, which I have mentioned earlier. A lot of my arguments and the reason that I follow fictionist reality on Tumblr and stuff like that is because I mainly read things on Archive of Our Own. And if you're not familiar with Archive of Our Own, it is a website where you can lay out your fanfiction. Oh my god, Norwegian is influencing me. Where you can post fanfiction and original stories. The thing about Archive of Our Own is that it's been praised for its tagging system. So, and now we also have an exclude section instead of just include, so it's much easier to filter out things that you don't want. And that just made no sense, I think, to anyone who isn't familiar with Archive of Our Own. But basically you can tag a fanfiction as something. For example, you can tag your text as suicide and other aspects that someone may be triggered by or find problematic, so that people can write these tags in under a section called exclude, where you exclude any fanfiction that includes these things, and they will not show up for you. In that aspect, Archive of Our Own is a very well done website, so readers do get a sense of what they're getting from these books. Now, the problem with the book industry, on the other hand, is the fact that there are no warnings whatsoever. Because from the tagging system you can kind of tell that, yeah, this is a problematic thing, and it doesn't matter how it's presented in the story, because the author took care to say that this is noteworthy enough to tag and give us a warning, so therefore it must not be okay. But with books you have nothing of the type. One author I want to mention is the one who wrote The Poppy War, because she has a list of trigger warnings for her book, and I think that is a really great thing to do by her. But I also think you shouldn't criticize other authors for not doing this, because I mainly think it is the responsibility of the publisher to do something like this. So of course I mentioned A Court of Thorns and Roses earlier, that the writing on the back said that there may be adult content included in the book, but I feel like that isn't enough. That maybe on the first pages there are some lines up in the corner or just under the title or something like that that explains what is included in this book, what you may expect from this book, and maybe include a resource where you can find a proper layout of where each problematic aspect is, or you can just have a footnote or a note in the start of the book that says this does not represent a proper healthy relationship. But as publishers are already so lazy, I think that there will be no hope of that actually happening. and I hope that the author of the popular has now started a trend of noticing triggering problematic content and making a list. You can see Lee Bardugo at least warned that this book had some content that some people may feel a little uncomfortable about, and I love that authors are now taking the responsibility that the publisher should have and doing something with it. And that is where we go over to my first point of the differences I noticed. This is what I got from the discussion video I watched, and that is that I noticed that there's the shows and books that get criticized for problematic content are mostly the ones that are terribly written. They're not written good enough. So now you can kind of tell why I really wanted you to go to this part. Because, like, there's no secret that 13 Reasons Why, for example, has terrible writing. So therefore their intentions of maybe saying that a bad person can also appear kind but doesn't excuse their actions may have stopped before the but. That they didn't get the but it doesn't excuse their actions part properly out because the writing was so bad that the intention didn't come across as clear. The same can be said for Anna Todd's After. Anna Todd has said that she just writes and portrays the world as it is. She doesn't have a full morale to push through her books, but I think there's still a responsibility on her to kind of explain through the narrative, through the way she's telling the story, that there's something wrong with this relationship. There's not something healthy about it. Or it is the responsibility of the author to publicly say that this is a fucked up story, that it includes these and these things, and if you're triggered by them, you shouldn't read it. And this is where I get kind of biased, because I mostly have read just well-written books in regards to problematic content. So therefore, I thought that all problematic content was presented the same way in narrative sense, but of course it isn't. So that's basically my point. If that all these problematic aspects are pointed out, maybe because the narrative didn't make it clear how they would approach these problematic aspects, and also didn't present them in a light that was proper. And that is of course subjective. So a person might find something problematic and someone may find it not problematic, because it is so subjective to how we are affected by things we read in books. So earlier I mentioned a bit about publishers having to take responsibility, and now we're also going to do that because we're going to talk about YA. And why I specified that this was going to be about YA. So there's a post or article, I think, I'm not really sure, by Bookriot that I found and I read through, and I think it is a really great article and representation of this problem, so I'm going to link that down below so you can read it yourself. But the thing is that I think that these problematic things are more problematic being in YA books than they are in new adult and adult. What that means is that YA is intended for younger audiences, and this destroyed the thesis of one of my later videos, so I'm going to have to change that up completely. And new adult and adult are of course intended for more mature readers, and I think that is a very clear distinction that you should have about books that you are reading. And books that deal with specific topics are intended for older readers and therefore should not be labeled as YA. And here is the main problem. Publishers know that YA sells. Therefore, no matter the content in the book, they will market it as a YA. And therefore authors who write more adult things, more problematic things, get shoved into this category that is really not prepared to handle it because that's what sells and the publisher just wants money. Here a topic is a lot of YA should be labeled as new adult. Something you can see nowadays is, of course, if you follow Kristoff, the author of Nevernight and Illuminate, on Twitter, you see that a lot of fans are tweeting him about the fact that his book Nevernight is constantly placed in the YA section when it is very clearly not YA. And I feel like a lot of fantasy and a lot of sci-fi romance books get affected by this. They get set in the YA genre just for being in that other genre of theirs, and that could really affect the sales of the book, but also the audience that picked the book up. This is where I reference Bookriot, because Bookriot has discovered that a lot of women get shoved into the YA category when they really should be new adult or adult books. And that a lot of female authors instantly get labeled as YA authors while writing more mature themes. And I think that the discussion she pulls up is very great, and I really don't have anything else to add to it. So therefore I just suggest you go to that article and read through it because it's really great. And here my beloved example of Sarah J. Maas comes in again, because both of her series, Throne of Glass and A Court of Thorns and Roses, I think she has expressed that she feels like they are more new adult than young adult. So therefore I think that we should look at the problematic aspects in her book as if they were in a new adult book rather than YA, because I think she herself intended the stories to be read by more mature readers. And I think especially A Court of Thorns and Roses is affected by this, because it is very clearly a more mature story that was not intended for YA, but was labeled as YA because of the publisher and also because of the social standard of women being the authors in YA. So a lot of the problematic content in A Court of Thorns and Roses I think are mostly problematic for younger readers, because I feel like, yeah, a lot of younger readers shouldn't read this. And there I lost my train of thought again. I'm so sorry. My ADHD is kind of acting up because I'm so just excited about actually talking about this thing, so I'm really sorry. I don't know how to say her name because it probably is pronounced a different way than it is in my country, but I think Francina Simone, if I said it wrong, I'm sorry, has a really great video about this up where she discusses sexuality in books and YA books and teen genres. And I think you should just go watch it because I don't want to repeat her points and take glory from basically what she presented to me. So you should go watch that video instead. But then I noticed that there is a different standard for men who write YA. And that is basically that men aren't allowed to write YA. And I think both sides are kind of in the wrong here. There's the side of, oh no, if a man writes YA, that isn't really like, oh, his books mustn't be great then. I feel like that's kind of the approach from the ones who read adult, because I feel like there's a lot of like classism and just superiority complexes when people who read other genres are talking about YA. But I also feel like the YA community kind of are problematizing it themselves. And here I'm going to pull out the example of John Green, because someone called him pedophilic for writing a sex scene in The Fault in Our Stars. My point is that the YA community also pushes away male authors because there's a lot of negativity towards male authors in general in the YA community. And I feel like that's something that kind of needs to be a little bit more, righted up and kind of discussed a bit more. And now we get to another point that is probably going to take a lot of time. But that is the US centrism that I see a lot of times in regards to problematic aspects in a book. So there's no secret that most of YA is centered around America. That is no secret, that is very obvious. But I also feel like you need to take the author's history and their ethnicity, you know, the country they're from, into account. And like, I'm going to blow every American's mind right now, but the thing is that the rest of the world does not regard race and also a lot of other topics the same way you Americans do. For example, in Europe, you don't define yourself by your skin color at all. You define yourself by the country you're from. The most obvious example of this is, of course, that Norway kind of has a rivalry with Sweden. So we have Swede jokes where the joke is basically that Swedes are dumb. That is a thing. And a lot of slurs and offensive words in the Norwegian language, I feel like, are very directed at where you're from. So I just need to take that into account when you read from a European author, that their concept of this entire thing may be different from yours because of this cultural and societal difference. And you also had a similar case with an Asian author exploring her culture and then being just shut down because you always focus on the American viewpoint and don't really see it from the viewpoint of others. And I feel like that's a problem with the entire fan community of YA. You're very American-centric and you expect everything to be set by an American standard and you don't accept anything that challenges that standard. So that's really all the points I had on this video. I hope you were interested by what I had to say. If you disagree with me or agree with me, let me know down in the comments and we can discuss, because I love that. And if you agreed more or very much agreed with what I had to say, please leave a like. If you would like to see more of my content, please subscribe and you'll see a video very soon. And I'll see you in my next video and I hope you have a lovely day. Bye!